All right, so get this. Today we're going deep on a conversation all about art and business.
Okay.
Specifically, how to make those two worlds mesh, work together.
Yeah.
We're going to be unpacking a fascinating episode of Roasted Macro Radio
Okay.
with Hideki the sculptor and Mayumi, who calls herself an inspiration artist.
Interesting combo, right?
Yeah, it's a really interesting combo.
What stood out to me right away was how they tackled the challenge of self-perception.
Yeah.
We often think we've got ourselves all figured out, but it's rarely that simple, is it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mayumi actually brought up this super mind-bending point about how we even refer to ourselves as I.
Yeah.
She argues that to say I means there's another I that's observing like a separate self that's analyzing what that first I is doing.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It suggests that real self-awareness, it requires some separation from our immediate thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Which is, especially crucial when we're trying to make sound decisions, right?
Right.
Particularly in a field as subjective as art.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if we can't even get a clear picture of ourselves, how can we accurately assess our own work, right?
Yeah.
It's like trying to judge a painting when you're standing right up against the canvas.
Yeah, exactly like trying to see the forest for the trees.
Totally.
Both Hideki and Mayumi suggest that we should be seeking advice from people we really admire.
Mm-hmm.
Those whose work really resonates with us.
Yeah.
Whose perspective we truly value.
Yeah.
And their feedback can help us step back and see the bigger picture.
So instead of just asking anyone, be strategic about who you're approaching, right?
Absolutely.
Find those mentors whose opinions you actually really care about.
Yeah. Find someone whose success you want to emulate.
Exactly.
But being able to really listen to feedback, even the stuff that's hard to hear,
Right.
that's a skill in itself.
Yeah.
They emphasize that every piece of feedback is valuable, whether it's positive or negative.
Right.
It's like each comment, each suggestion adds another piece to the puzzle of understanding our work and how it's perceived.
I can see how that could be tough, though. No one really enjoys criticism, even when it's constructive.
Right.
Do you think Hideki and Mayumi had any tips for handling that?
Well, they didn't get into specific strategies for receiving criticism.
Okay.
But they did highlight this really interesting distinction, the difference between what we want to create or offer
Yeah.
and what people actually want to buy or engage with.
So it's not enough to simply follow your passion.
No.
You also need to figure out how to make that passion connect with an audience.
Right. That's the key. And that's where business savvy comes in.
Yeah.
Mayumi actually shared some great advice she got from a business consultant
Okay.
who really stressed the importance of focusing on what will people buy alongside, what do I want to sell?
It reminds me of that classic saying, find a need and fill it. But in this case, it's more like find a need that aligns with your artistic passion and fill it creatively.
Exactly. And Mayumi actually illustrates this with a great anecdote about her scarves.
Okay.
See, she initially envisioned creating large-scale artwork, but then she realized a lot of people simply lacked the wall space to display them.
Ah, so her artistic vision had to adapt to the reality of her audience's lives.
Exactly.
So what did she do? Did she just give up on making art?
Not at all.
Okay.
She found a creative solution.
Okay.
She started making these beautiful artistic scarves, which still allowed her to express herself artistically, but also fulfill this practical need that resonated with her audience.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It sounds like she didn't just take the feedback at face value. She used it to spark a whole new direction for her work.
Exactly.
And it all came from listening to what her customers were actually saying.
It highlights the power of observation.
Yeah.
Not just listening to direct feedback, but really paying attention to the world around you. What people saying, what are they struggling with, what are their unmet needs. These observations can be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and that leads us perfectly to the main takeaway from this part of the conversation.
Okay.
Seeking advice, listening to feedback, and observing patterns
Right.
are key to gaining a clearer understanding of ourselves and our work.
Absolutely.
It's about being willing to learn and adapt.
Absolutely. And it makes me wonder, if we apply this to your own creative work, are you offering what people truly want? Or are you clinging to an ideal that may not resonate with your audience?
Ooh.
These are some questions worth pondering as we continue our deep dive.
Okay. It's funny because we often think of the art world as this like super competitive space.
Yeah.
But Hideki and Mayumi's conversation, it really emphasizes the importance of community and collaboration.
Yeah, it's almost a paradox, isn't it?
Right.
The idea that to truly shine as an individual,
Right.
you need to be open to influence and insights from other people.
It's like that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. You
Yeah.
know, maybe the art world is more about collective growth than just cutthroat competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought for sure.
Yeah.
And it ties in perfectly with their emphasis on, seeking out advice from people we admire.
Right.
But they don't just say, ask for help.
Right.
They're really specific about who we should be asking.
Exactly. They're not talking about just asking anyone for their 2 cents, right?
Right.
It's about being intentional and finding those individuals whose work we actually respect.
Yeah.
Whose opinions we value.
Whose opinions we value.
Like, why ask your neighbor for art critique?
Exactly.
When you could be getting feedback from, someone you consider a master in their field.
Exactly. It's about aligning yourself with those who inspire you.
Yeah.
Who embody the qualities you aspire to.
Right.
I mean, think about it this way.
Yeah.
You're more likely to trust the advice of someone who you see as successful.
Right.
Their feedback carries more weight because they've already walked the path you're on.
It's almost like seeking out mentorship, right?
Yeah.
Finding those guiding lights to help you see your own work more clearly.
Absolutely.
But even with the best mentors in the world,
Yeah.
it still comes down to how you handle the feedback they give you.
Absolutely.
And Hideki and Mayumi seem to agree that even unsolicited feedback can be a goldmine.
It's true.
Yeah.
They really suggest that every piece of feedback, positive or negative,
Yeah.
can offer some valuable insights.
Uh-huh.
And they encourage us to see each comment, each critique as a data point.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Instead of getting defensive or taking criticism personally, you're actually gathering information to help you understand your work better.
The more data points you have, the clearer the patterns become.
Okay.
And those patterns can reveal so much.
Yeah.
Where you need to grow, where you need to adjust, maybe even where you need to completely reinvent yourself.
And that's where Mayumi's story about the scarves comes full circle. It wasn't just about adapting her art to fit on a scarf.
Right.
It was about recognizing a pattern in the feedback she was receiving and turning it into a creative opportunity.
Right. It reminds me of something a successful entrepreneur once said.
Okay.
He said, in the world of business, the person who listens the most often wins. And I think that applies to art as well.
Yeah.
Mayumi listened to her audience. She observed their needs, and she was willing to adapt her approach.
Right.
And the result was a whole new avenue for her creative expression.
Yeah.
That also resonated with her market.
It's a powerful reminder that creative breakthroughs don't always happen in isolation.
No, they don't.
Sometimes the greatest inspiration comes from paying attention to the world around us.
Absolutely.
What are people saying? What are they struggling with?
Yeah.
What are those unspoken needs that we as artists or creators can tap into?
It's about being a keen observer, not just of your own work, but of the world at large. And I think that's what separates the truly successful artists and entrepreneurs from the rest.
Okay.
They're not just creating in a vacuum. They're actively engaging with their audience and the marketplace.
Okay, so let's get practical here.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about seeking advice, listening to feedback, observing patterns.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like in a day-to-day sense?
Right.
What steps can our listeners take to apply these concepts?
Well, first, think about who you admire in your field.
Okay.
Who are the people you look up to, whose opinions you genuinely value?
Right.
Make a list of those individuals and find a way to connect with them.
Okay.
Reach out, ask for their feedback on your work, your ideas, your goals.
And I bet it helps to be specific with your questions too, right? Instead of just saying, hey, what do you think of my work? Maybe ask something more targeted, like, what are your thoughts on the composition in this piece? Or do you think this concept is resonating with my target audience?
Exactly. The more specific your questions are, the more valuable the feedback you'll receive.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the listening part.
Yeah.
It's easy to get defensive when we hear criticism, even constructive criticism.
Yeah, that can be tough.
Yeah.
Especially when you've poured your heart and soul into something.
It is.
But it sounds like Hideki and Mayumi would say, don't let your ego get in the way of learning.
Exactly.
Right.
They suggest approaching feedback with an open mind.
Right.
Even if it stings a little.
Okay.
Remember, you don't have to agree with every piece of advice you receive.
Right.
but try to understand where it's coming from and what you can learn from it.
And then there's the observation piece.
Yeah.
It's not just about passively observing.
Oh, yeah.
It's about actively seeking out patterns and insights.
Yeah.
It's like being a detective looking for clues that can help you understand your audience, the market, and ultimately your own place within it.
It's about cultivating a sense of curiosity, a thirst for knowledge and understanding.
Okay.
The more curious we are about the world, the more we'll notice. And the more we notice, the more insights we'll gather.
So it sounds like curiosity is a superpower for creatives.
I think it is. It's the fuel that drives learning, growth, and innovation.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's one more powerful takeaway from Hideki and Mayumi's conversation that I want to touch on. It was how they talked about, like, recognizing and appreciating the unique value each of us brings to the world.
Oh, yeah. That's so important.
Yeah.
You know, it's so easy to get caught up in self-doubt.
Yeah.
Or compare ourselves to other people.
Totally. Especially in a field like art.
Yeah.
They actually use this really beautiful phrase,
Right.
finding our own light.
I like that.
Yeah. It's about, like, embracing our individuality, our strengths,
Yeah.
and then sharing them authentically.
What's powerful about that is that it shifts the focus from competition to contribution.
No.
It's not about, trying to be better than everyone else.
Right.
It's about realizing that we each have something unique to offer.
It's like we're all part of this giant mosaic, and each individual piece is essential to the overall beauty of the artwork.
I love that analogy. And just like Mayumi adapted her art to create those scarves, maybe shining our own light means finding the right form or medium for our own creative expression.
So maybe it's not about, like, forcing our vision onto the world,
Right.
but more about finding how to make it resonate with other people.
That's a great way to put it. And it circles back to everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Seeking advice, listening to feedback, observing patterns.
Right.
These are all tools that can help us refine our light, make it shine even brighter.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like we're constantly polishing our skills and our vision so we can share our unique gifts with the world.
It's a journey of self-discovery and growth, and it never really ends.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of art and business, I want to leave you with that thought-provoking question we mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
If you were to seek out advice today, who would you ask and why? Who are the people whose insights could help you navigate your own creative journey?
And remember, the answers might closer than you think.
Yeah.
Look to the people you admire, the ones who inspire you,
Yeah.
the ones who are already doing what you dream of doing.
And don't forget about the power of observation.
Right.
Pay attention to those patterns in your own life.
Yes.
And in the world around you, what are they trying to tell you?
Yeah. What opportunities are waiting to be discovered?
We hope this deep dive has given you some new perspectives and some practical tools that you can apply to your own creative endeavors.
Absolutely.
Remember, you have a unique light to shine.
You do.
Go out there and let it illuminate the world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.